They laughed when Raymond walked in, boots torn, hands caked in grease, voice trembling with hesitant hope. A mechanic by trade, he didn't belong in a showroom of polished glass and chrome. His truck, rusted and wheezing like it had seen 1,000 battles, sat out front as if embarrassed to be there. The staff exchanged glances, rolled their eyes, and smirked behind manicured hands. No one knew the man they mocked would return in less than 24 hours. Not through the front door, but from the sky. When the helicopter descended onto the dealership rooftop, everything stopped. Conversations died mid-sentence, jaws dropped, and even the sunlight seemed to pause in the air. What they had dismissed as a joke had become an arrival no one would ever forget. Before we begin, make sure to like this video and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. Your support helps us bring more powerful stories like this one. Now let's begin. Raymond Harris was never one for appearances. The grease under his fingernails had been there for years, the mark of a man who worked with his hands, not a stranger to sweat or sacrifice. His faded work shirt bore his name, stitched crookedly on the chest pocket like it had been done in a hurry. His truck coughed and wheezed as he pulled into the dealership lot that morning, its engine sounding like an old man clearing his throat. He stepped out, straightened his spine, and looked up at the towering glass windows of the luxury dealership as though he'd stumbled into another world. His steel-toed boots crunched awkwardly against the polished pavement, leaving smudges like scars across the pristine surface. Inside, the world gleamed. Cars lined up like sculptures, showroom lights bouncing off polished hoods and chrome accents. The staff glided between customers, dressed in designer suits and armed with iPads and arrogance. The receptionist noticed him first, a young woman with perfect curls and a practiced smile that quickly faded to suspicion. Her brows arched as she leaned over to whisper to a nearby salesman, who turned, took one look, and laughed. Raymond approached the automatic doors slowly. Even they seemed to hesitate, as if unsure whether to let someone like him in. Finally, they parted. "Excuse me, sir," a salesman said sharply, stepping in front of him. His name tag read Blake, and he wore the kind of suit that made him feel like a king. "This area is for customers only." "I am a customer," Raymond said quietly, trying to steady his voice. "I wanted to ask about the financing on the G-Class." The words hung awkwardly in the air before laughter exploded behind the counter. Another salesman, tall and sharp like a knife in a suit, leaned in with a smirk. "Sir, we're not hiring. Try the repair shop down the street." Raymond's face flushed, not from embarrassment. He'd endured worse, but from the quiet, simmering anger swelling beneath the surface. Without a word, he turned and walked back to his truck. As he opened the rusty door, he heard one of them chuckle. Probably just here to steal floor mats. That night, Raymond sat on the porch of his modest cabin outside Houston. The night air buzzed with cicadas, and the soft wind rustled through the trees like a whisper. He picked up his phone, dialed a number, and spoke just 5 words. "It is time. Do it." The next morning, the sky above the dealership roared. At first it was a low buzz. Most assumed it was a news chopper, maybe covering traffic. Customers shielded their eyes as the sleek, matte black helicopter descended onto the rooftop helipad. Something most employees didn't even realize existed. A quiet panic spread. The ground crew rushed out. Inside, Blake and the staff stared through the tall showroom windows, stunned into silence. The helicopter doors opened with theatrical slowness. A sharply dressed man stepped out first, flanked by a team carrying briefcases and tablets. Then came Raymond. His shoes gleamed, his black suit crisp and tailored, and his eyes hidden behind sleek, mirrored sunglasses. He looked like he'd stepped out of a magazine. But it wasn't the outfit that silenced the crowd. It was the realization. The same man they had mocked now stood taller, stronger, commanding more presence than anyone in that room. In his briefcase were the ownership documents, every signature inked, every page notarized. Raymond stepped through the same automatic doors, and this time, they didn't pause. They opened wide, as if waiting. At the front desk, Blake stood frozen. Raymond removed his sunglasses slowly, looked him in the eye, and smiled ever so slightly. "This area is for owners only," he said. "Is that going to be a problem?" He didn't wait for a response. He walked forward, and the floor beneath him almost seemed to straighten in his presence. No one dared move. Raymond didn't come back for revenge. He came for something greater. Dignity. For himself, and for every soul ever judged by the grease on their hands, the holes in their boots, or the rust on their truck. A woman in a navy blue suit entered behind him, walking with precision. Her name was Elise, head of operations. She approached the receptionist and handed her a sealed envelope. Effective immediately, Elise said, "These are restructuring notices. Kindly inform the staff to meet in the conference room in the next 10 minutes. The receptionist blinked, still trying to process the whirlwind surrounding her. Meanwhile, Blake hovered near the S-Class display, no longer smirking, his face pale, confused, and riddled with fear. The man he once called Junkyard Guy had returned as a force of nature, and nature, as they were about to learn, did not wait for permission. Raymond moved through the showroom slowly, every step echoing louder than the last. The polished floors, the expensive cars, the whispered comments. They were all shadows of what he had once dreamed of. He remembered the years under lifted hoods, the cracked skin from engine work, the lunches eaten alone in his truck because he wasn't welcome inside. He remembered being invisible, but no more. Now Raymond Harris owned one of the largest luxury dealerships in the state. 3 more were already under his name, and 2 more were under negotiation. Every square foot beneath those polished shoes belonged to him. In the conference room, the staff trickled in, nervous, confused. Some laughed awkwardly. Others scrolled their phones, hoping it was a prank or a viral marketing stunt. Elise entered, placed a folder on the table, and cleared her throat. Thank you all for coming. Mr. Harris will be joining us shortly. Before he does, let me be clear. This dealership has been fully acquired. Legal transfer completed this morning. There will be changes, and they are not up for discussion." Silence blanketed the room like fog. The door opened. Raymond walked in without introduction. He scanned the room, some faces shocked, others pretending they had always been kind. But he remembered them all, every smirk, every insult, every glance that had dismissed him. He spoke. "Yesterday I came here as a customer. I wore the clothes I work in. I wanted to see how I would be treated, honestly. And I was, very honestly. I was laughed at, judged, turned away like I was nothing." He paused. Blake shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Raymond looked straight at him. "Some of you might think this is about revenge. It's not. This is about culture, respect. The kind of business I run doesn't judge people by their shoes, their shirt, or how much grease is on their hands. I come from that world. I still belong to it." He placed a folder on the table. "Some of you will stay, some will go. That decision won't be based on resumes or sales numbers. It'll be based on something far more important. Humanity." Then he turned and walked out. And in that moment, everyone in the room understood. Raymond Harris wasn't a lucky mechanic with a windfall. He was a leader. One who had earned every scar, every dollar, every ounce of authority the hard way. And the rules of the game had just changed. By midday, the first employee walked out with a cardboard box in hand. His tie hung loose. His face was pale. No one said a word. The silence outside the dealership weighed more than any scream. Inside, guilt clung to the walls like frost. Elise stood at the entrance, composed and professional, coordinating the transition. But it was Raymond's presence, silent, steady, that filled every corner. In the showroom, Blake sat at his desk, hands trembling, staring blankly at his screen. Just yesterday, he had mocked Raymond, called him junkyard guy. Today, he couldn't meet his own eyes in the reflection of the glass. Raymond made his way to the service bay. The mechanics paused mid-task, stepping aside with wide eyes. Some recognized him, not just from earlier, but from the years past. He had once worked just 2 blocks down, fixing cars for single mothers and veterans, often for free. He never asked for recognition. He just helped. Quietly. A young mechanic, Marcus, stepped forward, eyes wide. Mr. Harris, I just wanted to say thank you. I remember when you fixed my mom's car. We didn't have money, but you still helped. Raymond smiled gently, his eyes soft. I remember. Blue Corolla, bad fuel pump. Marcus nodded, eyes glassy with emotion. And in that moment, everyone understood. Raymond wasn't just a man with wealth. He was a man with purpose, with memory, with heart. And now, with power. Not to flaunt, but to build, to correct, and to lead. Because sometimes, the man with the dirtiest hands is the one most fit to hold the reins. Yes, sir. That car ran 3 more years because of you. Raymond placed a hand on his shoulder. This place is yours now, too. People like you will build its future. Back in the conference room, the air felt charged with a new energy. New leadership documents were being distributed, crisp folders passed from hand to hand. The message was clear. This wasn't just a change in management, it was a transformation of values. Employees who had a history of integrity and compassion were offered promotions, some nearly in tears as they read the offers they never expected. A few who had quietly spoken against the ridicule the previous day were given surprising opportunities, elevated not because they asked, but because they had earned it in silence. And as for Blake, his moment came near the end of the day. He was summoned to Raymond's office, a sleek, glass-walled space now overlooking the entire floor he once ruled with smug certainty. The door clicked shut behind him. Raymond stood near the window, his silhouette framed by the fading orange hues of the sunset. He turned slowly, his gaze calm but piercing. Do you know why I didn't fire you on the spot? He asked. Blake swallowed hard. No, sir. Because firing you would have made you a victim in your own story. I wanted you to face it instead. Every mistake, every word you said yesterday, every second you used your position to make someone feel worthless. Blake lowered his eyes, unable to meet the weight of Raymond's words. Raymond stepped closer, his tone steady. You won't be working here. That decision is final. But I want you to remember this moment. Because the next time someone walks into your life looking like they don't belong, you might just be looking at someone who owns the building. As Blake left the office, hollow and shaken, Raymond took a deep breath. This wasn't a victory lap. It was a reckoning. He wasn't celebrating. He was restoring balance. Outside, people on the sidewalks had stopped in their tracks, pointing their phones at the rooftop. The helicopter, sleek and matte black, still sat there, silent and still like a monument. But what it represented echoed louder than any engine. Raymond was not finished yet. His next stop was far from the polished floors of the dealership. After the last employee had left in stunned silence, Raymond stepped into his sleek black car and drove toward a neighborhood few would willingly explore. The streets here were narrower, homes smaller and worn, but each carried its own story. Tales of hard work, resilience, and dreams often overlooked. As Raymond parked outside a modest 2-story house, a flickering porch light welcomed him like a lighthouse cutting through fog. He stepped out slowly. The air smelled like dust and memories. The weight of years past settled onto his shoulders like a familiar coat. He had stood outside places like this as a boy, watching the world pass him by. The door opened slowly. A woman with silver-streaked hair and warm eyes stood in the doorway, her face softening into a knowing smile. Martha, his mother, the one who had believed when no one else did. Raymond stepped forward and embraced her tightly, the quiet strength of their bond shining brighter than any spotlight. "Martha," he said softly, "today was a step not just for me, but for everyone like us who has been overlooked." She nodded gently, emotion shimmering in her eyes. "I always knew you would make them see." Raymond reached into his pocket and pulled out a thick envelope. "This is for you. It's a small gesture compared to what you deserve, but it's the beginning." Inside were documents bearing her name, the deed to the neighborhood community center. Raymond had purchased the building with plans to renovate it into a place where young people could learn trades, find mentors, and discover their worth beyond labels or appearances. "This is more than a building," Raymond said, his voice full of quiet resolve. "It's a symbol. No one should ever feel less because of where they come from." The next morning, the story of Raymond's purchase had spread like wildfire. News stations picked it up. Interviews were requested. Social media lit up with hashtags, praise, and debates. But more importantly, neighborhoods across the city began to stir with hope. For once, the spotlight was on a billionaire who wasn't removed from reality, but rooted in it. A man who had walked their streets, turned their wrenches, and now returned not to boast, but to build. Back at the dealership, the transformation was more than cosmetic. New programs launched quietly. Apprenticeships opened for underprivileged youth. Training centers were equipped with real-world tools and real-world mentors. The culture changed. Respect became the foundation. Status didn't come from suits or titles, but from how you treated the person next to you. One day, as Raymond stood near the upper floor window overlooking the showroom, now filled with diverse faces, laughter, and energy, a young woman in a crisp navy polo approached him. She looked nervous but determined. "Mr. Harris," she said, voice steady, "thank you for believing in people like me. You changed my life." Raymond smiled, placing a hand on her shoulder. "The future belongs to those who refuse to be defined by their past. Keep pushing. You're the reason we're here." In the end, it wasn't the helicopter landing that mattered. It wasn't even the signed papers. It was the quiet strength to rise after being dismissed, the courage to forgive when bitterness would have been easier, and the unwavering determination to build a world where dignity isn't a luxury. It's a right. Raymond's journey wasn't just a tale of riches. It was a testament to humanity, to every grease-covered hand that built a life from nothing, to every tired mother, overlooked student, and dismissed worker. His story proved that power doesn't come from what you wear or drive. It comes from what you carry in your heart. So the next time someone looks at you and sees only your flaws, your clothes, or your past, remember Raymond Harris. Know that your moment is coming. Your time to rise, to lead, and to rewrite your story with your own hands. This isn't the end of one man's journey. It's the spark for countless others who now know what's possible. Thank you for listening. If you want to hear more stories like this, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from. Your support helps us bring more powerful stories to light. Thanks.